Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melissa. If you're new here, so welcome. For today's video, I'm going to update you guys on how I've been watering my moss poles. I have a video on my channel already going over my moss pole collection, but I have made a lot more poles since that time. This isn't going to be a collection video, but just an updated video on how I water them. I did recently, not too long ago, do a care video. It was like a 30-minute video and I went through my process of how I water them and care for them, and I feel like it is just completely different now, and I just want to update you guys and fill you in on how I've been taking care of my moss poles. This little thing right here, you guys, is a lifesaver. You guys need these watering globes because this has saved me so much trouble with my moss poles. This little device is just amazing. So this right here is a watering globe. It is glass, so it can break. This is open on the top. So you stick this down into your moss pole and you pour water in here and it slowly drips and saturates the moss pole. And I'm gonna show you exactly how I do it and some examples and the consistency of the moss. And I'll tell you about how often I do this every week. And you guys, the best part is I don't have to move my poles now. I can water them exactly how they are in their spots. I don't have to take them down. I just, rotate these around my poles, plop it in, water it. Some poles, depending on how much moss is actually packed in there and how big they are, I have to refill this a few times, but it is such a lifesaver. So let me walk you through a little bit of a guide on how I use these. Oh, I forgot to mention, these are from Amazon. I will link these down below for you. They come in a 2-pack. They're around $17.99, so they're like $9 a piece, which I'll eventually get more. I bought 3 sets, so I have 6 globes total, and I have a lot of poles. It would be nice to have 1 per pole, and that way they can just sit in the top of the pole and I can water them all at one time. So it does take a little bit longer because I don't have enough of these to go around, but I thought $9 for one is kind of a lot of money sometimes. So depending on how many poles you have, you may want to invest in more than just the 2-pack eventually. But yeah, I'll probably end up getting more, but for now I'm just rotating the 6 around all the poles that I have, but I will probably end up getting more of these. So these will be linked down in the description box below. So this is one of my moss pole corners. I recently rearranged and redid my moss poles, so it looks a little bit different. This is the other section. I recently moved my work desk out of here so I could have more pole room. I do have about 5 poles outside that I do the same method with. I'll eventually be bringing them in here and probably fitting them all right here, but for now, this is how many poles I have, and this is my newest one that I just did. I'm going to show you how easy it is to water the poles. This is what it looks like up close. There's different versions of watering globes, but I like this one because the top is open, so you don't have to flip anything and risk spilling water everywhere. This is something, similar to using a water bottle, but I find these ones are a little bit more sturdy. They're not as flimsy by using a bottle. I just prefer using the watering globes. The first time using these, you do have to make that initial hole into the moss, and so it does take a little bit of maneuvering to figuring out that hole, because the first time you do this you might make a mess with water everywhere because it may seep out the pole if you don't have that first hole done right. So a lot of these poles here, they already have the hole because I've already been watering them this method. So all I do is just stick it down in that hole, press it in there, and then I usually just take a gallon jug of water and I will pour water in here to the top. And then it'll slowly kind of drip down and saturate the moss. So I use these twice a week now. One time I will let them drip down a little bit further until it reaches the top of the soil. That way the substrate and the soil can get a little bit wet. So I'll do the initial full water usually over the weekend, and then midweek, usually Wednesday, Thursday, I will moisten the moss again, because usually my poles dry within a couple of days, but I usually stop at the top of the leaf because I don't want this to dry drip down further and keep that soil wet, because that's something I don't want, is for that soil to be completely wet all the time. I want that soil to dry out a bit. So I'm gonna let this one drip and I will come back, you know, and show you the progress it's made. It's kind of like a little balance in figuring out the best method that's gonna work for you and your poles, because, you know, everyone's poles are different. Everyone has like different amounts of moss that's in the pole. Everyone has different size poles, like the circumference around and the height. So really each pole is different. Even my tall poles that are plastic that are still wobbly, I can still use this method to water these poles because it doesn't make it too top heavy. I usually don't fill up all the way for these ones, usually about 3/4, and I just have to fill it a little bit more often, but I can still water these tall plastic ones without having to move them, which is such a time saver. So if you water them too much, you will have excess water in the drip pan. So I watered my poles this weekend, and so that's why the soil was pretty wet. I gave them like a good drink. And so you want to make sure to lift this up and empty anything that's left in the saucer. Or if you have a ceramic pot, make sure to lift the poles out of there to dump any excess water out, because you don't want the pots to sit in water because you can rot the roots. So it just takes a little maneuvering on figuring out your poles. Look at this new leaf. So pretty. This is the new pole that I just made. So I have not made that indentation yet in the moss. I'm going to show you how I do that. I just use the bottom of this to make my hole. Yeah, so usually I will twist it in there, because sometimes you can't press like straight down. Okay, so there we go. So it's a little bit hard to make that first hole. So I don't know if this is centered or if water's going to spill out everywhere, but we're going to test it. I'm just going to pour a little bit and see where it drips. Because sometimes when I'm making the first hole, it accidentally gets too far close to the edge on the inside, and then it starts dripping down. So you have to just maneuver it. You kind of want it to be centered in the middle. So that one's perfect. And you can see the water level like draining. You can kind of see it saturating a little bit here. Yeah, so I'm not gonna worry about watering this one because I just watered it. And then to take these out, they usually just come right out. Sometimes if they're a new pole, I'll let them sit in the new pole for a little while, just so that like hole indentation can mold a little bit. So like ones that I've watered several times, you know, again, I just place it down in there. It usually slides right in, no problem, and it's already in the same spot. So I'll just water it again, and it's, you know, no problem. Some of these drain a little bit faster, some of them drain a little bit slower. I think it really just depends on how much moss is actually packed inside. Okay, these guys have had a little bit of time to water, so I wanted to show you how the moss looks when it starts to drip. So this middle one here, I took the bulb out already. I don't want it to go any further, and it will probably continue to drip like another inch or two. And then once this water is finished in this one, I'm not going to fill it anymore, and it'll probably end, you know, about right here, and that's all the water that I want to do because I'm not watering the soil part. And again, once that one there drips down, I will not water anymore because I don't want it to get too far down into the soil. And then this one has completely drained almost. There's a little bit left in there, and you can see how far down that one thing of water went. So yeah, that one was actually enough for this pole. And you can kind of see where it's wet. You don't hear like that dry squishy, and if it was dry, it would sound like that. You don't want it to be moist like this all the time because then it could introduce mold. You want, you know, some kind of dryness again with the poles. So this is wet, it's not super soaked like this here. And then these ones are completely dry almost. So I'll probably top a couple of these ones off, and then I might do it one more time before the weekend. I really hope this video was helpful for you guys, and it is just so much easier watering my poles this way with the globes. And you'll have to let me know if you end up trying this method, how you like it compared to your old way. I just feel like using a water bottle is just too top heavy, it's too wobbly, it makes a mess, and you have to like, I don't know, I just feel like the bottle is just, I'm over the bottle method. So I'm so much happier using the globes. Just make sure that the top is open. I find it easier than using one that you have to actually like dump over. So yeah, it's just such a time saver. I don't make a mess. I don't have to move them. If too much water gets in the drip pan, I'll just lift it up, dump it out in a separate container, plop it right back. I can water all my poles in no time. It literally takes no time at all to water. It just makes for such a simplified process. So yeah, I really hope you found this helpful and you enjoy this video. And yeah, let me know if you try it and how you like it, and I will talk to you all later.